If it's all up to you to do whatever it takes to ensure that you get ahead, that you win, then you're engaged in a burdensome self-rescue project, one that is guaranteed to fail. And those of us who are self-aware know that to be true because we've tried. Time and time again, we've tried. Years ago, in Vogue magazine, Madonna was interviewed. And what she wrote has stuck with me for years because it was so honest, so self-aware. She said, "I have an iron will, and all my will has always been to conquer some horrible feeling of inadequacy. I push past one spell of it and discover myself as a special human being, and then I get to another stage and think I'm mediocre. Again and again this happens. My drive in life comes from this horrible fear of being mediocre, and that's always pushing me. Because even though I've become somebody, I still have to prove that I'm somebody. My struggle has never ended, and it probably never will." I mean, Madonna's more honest and self-aware than most of us to even be able to say that, to admit that about herself. She admits that she hasn't gained the validation she craves, so she keeps pressing. I mean, some of the highest achievers I've ever known are the most enslaved to the spirit of competition. And oftentimes they're competing with themselves. One of my favorite movies, probably top 10, was Chariots of Fire. There are some scenes in that movie that are gripping. It's the story of, it's actually a parallel story of Eric Liddell and Harold Abrahams leading up to the 1924 Olympics. Eric Liddell was a devout Christian whose parents were missionaries. But the scene I'm referring to, that I'm getting ready to refer to, is a scene of Harold Abrahams, who was not a Christian. He too was competing in the 1924 Olympics. And there's this scene right before the final race where he'll be competing for the gold medal. And he's getting massaged by his trainer. And he says this to him in a moment of real sobriety and honesty. He says to his trainer, "I used to be afraid to lose, but now I'm afraid to win. In an hour from now, I will be out there again. I will raise my eyes and look down that lane, 4 feet wide, with 10 lonely seconds to justify my whole existence. But will I?" He's giving voice to the way most of us feel a lot of the time. The emptiest, as someone once said, the emptiest moment in life is when you've just accomplished what you thought would deliver the ultimate and it has let you down. Feeling the need to justify yourself by ending up on top, by getting the win, whatever the win may be in any given moment. Oftentimes, the need to win comes in conversation with those closest to us. But feeling the need to justify ourselves by always getting the win, by ending up on top, it's a heavy way to live. And we weren't meant to carry that burden. Fearing loss, fearing rejection if we don't sufficiently impress, drives us to lie, cheat, and steal in a variety of ways. So as I was exploring this all week, really, but yesterday in depth, I was forced to ask, what fuels this competitive drive that we all have? It's one thing to acknowledge its existence, but to get under the surface and go, what is it that fuels this? What is it that primarily fuels this competitive spirit, this competitive drive that enslaves us so often? And I went through a variety of different possible answers to that question in my own heart and mind. I think what drives it is our desire to be approved, our desire to be loved, our desire to be respected. All of that is true, yes, but then I had to go a little deeper. But why do I desire to be approved? Why do I desire to be validated? Why is that even there? And I had to go a little deeper. And I came up with one word. What is it that ultimately fuels this competitive drive? Unbelief. It's that simple. We simply don't believe that we are already justified by God, so we spend our lives trying to justify ourselves. We simply don't believe that all of the love and approval and validation and justification that we long for is already ours. Instead of believing that our identity is already firmly established by God, we seek to forge our own identity by what we can secure for ourselves. Unbelief. We don't believe that we are loved, approved, forever made right and justified by the only person that ultimately matters, namely God. And so we undergo these identity crises because our identity is not firmly placed in God's love for us. And so we seek to forge our own identity by what we can do for ourselves, what we can secure for ourselves, and it never works. Never.